and welcome back to another video. I thought in today's video we could have a look at kind of ways to bring yourself out of art block, whether you want to call it that or not, or maybe a slump in creativity, or just want to work up to doing a bigger piece of art or something like that. Because basically lately with COVID etc, there's been points where I've had dips in where I don't really want to do any art, or I'm struggling to come up with something to do for a video, say, etc. So I thought I would go through all the things that I've recently learned really helped me loosen up, really helped me start being creative again, and just help in general with my artwork basically. So you may have seen kind of on Instagram, if you follow me at LucyLooksArt, that I fill up this sketchbook quite often with doodles. I can watch a show and decide to doodle something from the show. Lately I've been kind of, just before I start work, just grabbing a dip pen and doodling with that and seeing where that takes me, and just having a little bit more fun, being a little bit more loose, a little bit more relaxed. Now, some of these tips might help other people more than others, you know what I'm trying to say, might help some people more than others. These tips kind of, you've got to deduce what works for you, because some things that I've watched where people are saying this helps you get out of art block doesn't necessarily help me, so I've kind of developed my own, and I suggest you do the same. But here are some examples of something that I do. So often I will actually just sit and scroll through Instagram. Now, I know a lot of people do that on the daily anyway, but if you have an art account like me, I just make sure that I kind of follow other art accounts on that, other creative channels and feeds on my own Instagram. And so I can sit through my art Instagram and scroll, and there's art after art after art, constantly feeding my own creative juices, let's say. So some people don't like to think that they are copying other people's artwork, and obviously copying and selling and all of that is not good, copyright and all of that, not very good. But if you're just doing it to loosen up, to be creative, you can see an idea on Instagram and use it. Like I recently found someone who had created a black background and then done that scribbliness very much better than what I've done, but I was really inspired by that, and I really wanted to try it, so I tried it in my sketchbook. It's not going to be a finished piece of art, it's not going to be sold or anything. I'm just loosening up, I'm sketching, I'm just trying to be to explore a little bit whilst trying new techniques and things like that. So I find scrolling through Instagram is very, very helpful. And likewise, saving posts. I save a lot of things that I really want to try in the future, or I don't have time to do now, and I want to just keep them to one side. And then every so often I'll go onto my Instagram and go into my previously saved, and then that's an even bigger well of creativity, because it's things, because on the daily you get a mix of different artists obviously doing their work, and at the moment it's a lot of reels because Instagram's pushing the video side of their platform. But if you have a lot of saved work, that's a lot of work that over time you've amalgamated, and that can sometimes be better than just the feed itself. So that's just one thing that I really enjoy doing. Another, which is actually, it's probably one of my favourite things to do at the moment, is to go onto royalty-free stock image website. Like, I use Pexels, which I'll link in the description below, and that's really handy. I go onto their homepage and I literally just scroll through until an image really jumps out at me, and then I'll tend to just use that image on the day and do a sketch or something. I'll go into supplies and stuff in a second, but I find that really, really helpful. And then sometimes you might think, maybe I want to try mushrooms, so I'll search mushrooms on there and I'll scroll through that page until I find an image. But it can be really helpful because there's a mass of images, different angles of the subject, or just subjects that you wouldn't normally look at and wouldn't normally think about inking or drawing or sketching, and I find that's really, really helpful as well. There's a tons of stock image websites out there, so there's never a lack of images and resources there. And the best thing about doing that as well is if you do it in your sketchbook and you love what you've done, that image is royalty free. So as long as you maybe reference the artist, the photographer, etc., you can then use that in the future, and you can maybe make that into a permanent piece of artwork, print, sell it, etc. So that can sometimes be really good, because your more loose work can sometimes be your better work. So other than that, and along the same vein, I would suggest maybe looking through Pinterest. It depends on how you've geared your Pinterest. Mine's very much geared towards my miniatures sort of stuff. So if you don't know what that is, if you go and follow me on Instagram at LucyLocksMiniatures, that's more crafty side of things, and that's what my Pinterest is geared towards. I don't think it has as much art on there. But that's another platform that's along the same vein as Instagram and as the royalty-free images. So that's always a good one. Another place to get inspiration is obviously YouTube. Here on YouTube, I have a lot of artists I follow here. You've got your main ones like Bailey J, Jazza. They're always a well of creativity. But I've recently been watching Monkey Mintaka, I think it is. She's from England like me, and I just really love her vibe. She's very loose, and she does a lot of work in her sketchbook, and that can inspire me to do work in my sketchbook. I don't know what it is. When I watch her doing sketches in there, it makes me want to do sketches in there. And she's very much kind of a draw every day type girl, and she loves being loose with colour as well, and line work doesn't have to be crisp and perfect, but her artwork's just amazing and I love it so much. So I've been watching her a lot lately, and that's really been inspiring me as well. So yeah, there are just a few places I like to get my inspiration from. And then something that I find really helps me just want to create in my sketchbook is, well, one, having a sketchbook. I've been mentioning a sketchbook a lot. Obviously you can do this on loose pieces of paper, etc. But personally, I like to have, as you can see in the background here, I have multiple moleskins here, and this size helps me. I think choosing the right size is key, because I've tried having a bigger sketchbook like I've seen a lot of people have, and I find it too daunting. I look at the blank paper and I find it too daunting to do sketches in. And maybe for a bigger piece of artwork, yeah, great, but you want a big piece of paper. But for just doing doodles or sketches or references, you don't want something too big personally. And I mean, you can have a big sketchbook and have multiple images on that sketchbook page, but personally I like to have a smaller one, so you just need to find out what works for you. But in terms of supplies, I really gravitate to the more simple supplies. So lately I've been using a little dip pen. It's a really fine tip dip pen, and just using some of my ink. I have a lot of alcohol ink. I've got a lot of acrylic ink, and I've got a lot of water-based ink, Winsor & Newton, FW inks, Liquitex, all of those brands, and I just find that just dipping this ink pen in and scratching and scrawling on the page really simply is really nice. And likewise with a ballpoint pen, I have a sketchbook dedicated to ballpoint pen sketches of bark and nature and things like that, which it's just really freeing to just put something down on paper that you know you can't take off. I know that sounds daunting, and usually it would be daunting, but weirdly, when you know you're being loose and you know this is not meant to be a finished piece of artwork, that actually is quite freeing almost. And I find that's one of those things that I really enjoy doing. I really enjoy doing, and I've stopped lately doing pencil sketches, and I don't know whether in the long run when I do finished piece of artwork that will help. Perhaps it will, you know, putting paint straight onto canvas without sketching anything out first. I think that could work. It could help me, and I feel like I'm developing by doing that. And that's just my personal feelings. You may prefer to sketch first, and that's fine, but personally I really liked that. This hand that I've done, well, a few of the things in here, but this hand in here, I did not sketch that out first, and the proportions are slightly off like this, although you could say that you could argue that is what your hand would look like, but I feel like this bend here is a bit too severe, but I actually really like it. It's probably one of my favourite things that I've done lately, and that was just me putting it down, and I'm not bothered that it's a little bit out of proportion because it's in my sketchbook. It's not going to be a finished piece of artwork, but I really enjoy looking at it. I can't stop flicking through it. Every time I get into my sketchbook and I need to do something new, I flick to that page because I'm really drawn to it. I love seeing it. So yeah, just using the simpler tools, even just a pencil, you know, you don't have to have ink, you don't have to have all of that. Just a pencil on paper can be really, really good to just get you going. Now, I know that a lot of other artists who, especially here on YouTube, who film a lot of these videos where they're kind of showing you what to do in your sketchbook, they kind of go towards the Zentangle and the doodling route, which I've tried, and personally it doesn't loosen me up because I'm just doing shapes. I'm not doing, I mean, it might loosen your muscle up, it might loosen your hand up, but personally in terms of being inspired to do more art, it doesn't really inspire me. I kind of get a bit bored of doing them and then drift off and just don't do any art, basically. So again, that might work for you, it doesn't work for me. I'm just sharing my experience here and what works for me. Another thing is maybe just sticking to something you know. I know a lot of people, see, I can drift, there'll be moments where I really enjoy trying a new supply, trying a new subject, learning something new, and that can boost my creativity to try something else, and it can make me go down a different path. However, sometimes learning something new can be a block in its own right because you might not be picking it up quite as quick as you want to pick it up. You might feel a little, what's the word, held back by that. It might just not be what you need to boost your creativity. And so sometimes sticking to the subject matter, you know how to paint, you know how to draw, can be that. I struggle with painting and drawing landscapes. It's been something that I've been trying to work on multiple times. I've done oil paintings, I've done all sorts, and you know, if I push myself I can do it, but if I'm feeling particularly held back, a bit low about my art, maybe I'm not producing any art at all, I find just sticking to nature. I love painting birds, I love drawing animals, and weirdly, hands. I really enjoy doing hands, and sometimes when I'm not feeling creative enough to create something new, I'll find a reference of some hands, as you saw there in my sketchbook, and that, just sticking to something I know and doing it better can boost me to try something new and potentially fail or not pick it up quite as quickly. And that's something that I think you've got to judge, whether it's better to try something new or to stick to something you know, because it's not always good to be learning learning something new. You're still learning by every piece you're making, but you've just got to find that balance, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And that's just something that you need to judge yourself. But equally, I find it quite creative to try a new supply. Like if you see my art room, if you've seen one of my art room tours previous years, I have supplies coming out of my ears because I love trying something new, and sometimes those supplies may never get touched again, and some of them I stick with and I use them quite often once I've tried them. And you've just got to find what makes you creative, what boosts you into wanting to do more art, basically. That's what I'm trying to say. And I think being loose, not putting pressure on yourself, not creating a polished piece of artwork every time you sketch, that's obviously a big thing. Going outside, getting some fresh air, getting some exercise can sometimes help. Get some oxygen to the brain. Take reference photos of whatever subject matter you feel is you're comfortable with or not comfortable with, whatever's going to boost that creativity. You've got to try things. And I know there was a point during this last lockdown here in the UK where I kind of was sat here and I was like, I really just don't want to create any artwork. And sometimes that's fine as well. You want a break, you want to come back with fresh eyes, come back with more love for art. You don't want to make yourself hate art, and that's something I think I learned this last lockdown, was to actually give myself time, not have to push through it. And sometimes you don't have that freedom when you're filming YouTube videos, because you obviously need a YouTube video a week, and sometimes that can be a little bit of pressure. But now that things are opening up, you're able to go outside, do that, go and explore, go and have fun with friends. You relaxing can help you with your creativity. I don't know why this turned into some sort of counselling session for me telling you how to do artwork again, but basically I'm just sharing my experiences and what might work and what might not work for you, and how I get out of, I keep putting art block in quotations because I know some people don't like that phrase, but this is how I overcame that, and that's how I keep loose, and that's how I keep creative and help myself with producing more art, basically. And I just thought I would share my experiences with that and produce a little bit of artwork as you're watching, and I hope you really enjoyed the video. I've really enjoyed filming this. Actually, it was a little bit of a last minute video for me because I'm going away, and I actually was ill over the weekend, so I had to swap my video filming around, etc. But I hope I've helped with perhaps you wanting to create a little bit more art, and wanting to overcome a bit of art block and see where that takes you. And I'd love to know in the comments down below whether you use some of these tips already, whether these tips were helpful, and what tips you may want to give to others as well. And I'll pin some of those and like some of those comments and reply to you down in the comments below. So please hit that thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. I hope you did. Subscribe for more, because I produce 2 videos a week, Monday and Friday, and I look forward to seeing you there. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.